and welcome to the back room, where we talk about politics across the country, around the city, and even right here in the Bronx. I'm Lisa Schiffren, your host. I'm a Republican speechwriter.
David Eisenbach, presidential historian.
So, we just went through the election. We've been off the air for a couple of weeks. But today, the news is all Jeffrey Epstein. 427 congressmen voted against one to release the Epstein files. Donald Trump, who opposed this for a long time, has come around and now wants the files released because he believes that they will not harm him in any way. He believes he comes out smelling like a rose. What do you think, David?
Well, I think there's a reason why he blew so much of the political capital, divided MAGA to stop these files from being released. There has to be something big in there. Not only that, he put pressure on Mike Johnson, who shut down the Congress, kept it closed. And think about this. You're one of these Republican Congress members, and you're sticking by the president. You go back to your district. You got people calling you, accusing you of covering up for pedophiles, but you remain true, and then the president flip-flops on you. It's like, why would you stick your neck out for this guy, knowing full well he could totally change his tune down the line, and you're left holding the bag?
I think he had no choice but to flip-flop because too many Republicans were going to vote for it anyway.
That's right. That's right. And cheers to Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie for standing by principle over party, because that so rarely happens, but they did that, and making common cause with Ro Khanna. It was a bipartisan movement. And by the way, this is something the Democrats ignored when they were in power. So I think we're finally going to get some semblance of truth.
So I disagree with you that there's something in there that will take Trump out. I think that if there had been anything really to catch him, the Biden administration would have pushed this front and central. I just think personality-wise, we know he doesn't like little girls. He doesn't like young women. He's got a very definite type, and it's not that.
Look, I'm not going to prejudge it, but I'm looking at the behavior. He's acting like a guilty man. I said this, when this whole thing started. If he's perfectly innocent, then why is he behaving like he's so guilty?
Because I think the fact is he had some kind of relationship with Epstein. And they spent a certain amount of time together. That we know. There's no two ways about that.
Yes.
So I assume he thought that looked bad, and it does look bad. It's not a good judgment. Larry Summers, the former Secretary of the Treasury and president of Harvard, this morning apologized for his lapse in judgment of many years in spending so much time and effort being friends with Epstein and emailing with him about affairs he wanted to have and other kind of gross stuff.
Yeah.
I think
but Trump was not covering up to protect Larry Summers or Alan Dershowitz or any of the other cast of characters.
But I think
he was protecting himself. And
but not because of sex.
Well, what else is there? What else is there for Trump and Epstein to have become, buddies over?
I think the mere fact that he spent time with Epstein looks bad.
There's no way he fractured his base. He fractured MAGA. And risked everything. He derailed his entire administration. Right now, the administration is absolutely lost, and it all started when the Epstein business started blowing up. And so, if this turns out to be a nothing, then this was the dumbest cover-up in the history of presidential cover-ups.
I think it might be that. It might be a dumb cover-up of nothing.
Yeah.
I don't see any way around that. I do think that I think we've spent a little too much time on Epstein as a country. Well, it's gross. He was disgusting. He abused these girls. Ghislaine Maxwell clearly manipulated a bunch of young women. But
right.
It's just this is not inherently important.
Well, it is important because it gets to a deeper rot within the system. The idea that these billionaires can get away with these horrible acts, and the U.S. government, including the FBI, comes in and protects them. You know, one of the ones who comes across the worst in this whole story is A, Mamdani, B, Kash Patel, who, you know, both of them spent during the Biden administration up into the early days of Trump about how we're going to get to the bottom of the Epstein business and we're going to out all these guys. And as soon as they come into power, they totally flip-flop. I mean, Kash Patel is a joke right now.
I think Kash Patel is a joke on a good day. I'm no fan. But I think the real problem was with Epstein is that he was always treated with kid gloves. Even in 2008, when he was tried, they reduced the indictments, and he was tried only on one count of sexual abuse of a minor instead of the many, many counts they could have actually tried him on.
That's right. And Alex Acosta said, who was in charge of that deal, that it was because that Epstein had intelligence ties. Which then kind of circles back to this connection.
Well, that's a real question. Like, we don't know if that's true. It makes sense that it would be true because you can't think what the hell else was he doing, taping a bunch of powerful men having sex with teenage girls. But it's that hasn't been proved, and there's no information about that. I would like to see that come out. I think that'd be interesting.
Well, and this is why
and who would be surprised to find out that the CIA or the Mossad or whoever was using some scummy guy in New York to entrap important men?
Yes. This wouldn't be the first time intelligence agencies used sex
traps
in order to blackmail powerful people.
So, the other story that's been in the news a lot lately is Trump bombing a bunch of boats coming out of Venezuela. Nicolas Maduro, at this point, wants to talk to Trump. Maduro is clearly afraid that Trump is going to actually invade Venezuela and force him out. I don't know if it would be the worst thing in the world to force him out, but I think invading Venezuela is a pretty bad idea. I'm told that this is Marco Rubio's plan and not Trump was convinced by Rubio to go forward with this. I don't know. I think it's a mess, and I'm not sure all those boats are actually drug boats.
Yeah, I mean, how can we tell? You know, one thing I can tell is that these boats, you know, one of the boats had 11 guys on them. You know, we're talking a tiny boat. How much drugs could you actually get on that boat with 11 guys? And this accusation that they're bringing in fentanyl, no, that's not where the fentanyl's coming. The Chinese produce the chemicals that are the precursors to fentanyl. They send it to Mexico. It gets processed into fentanyl in Mexico, and then it comes up with the cartels through the
right.
U.S.
All
Mexico
fentanyl
border.
comes from Mexico. That's true.
You know, so the cocaine, the straight up hardcore cocaine, yeah, okay, that might be coming up through Venezuela, but on the little tiny boats off the coast of Venezuela, that's a long trip to get to the United States of America.
They've also been bombing boats in the Pacific.
Okay, then these boats in the Pacific, but this is tiny amounts of cocaine that are nowhere near the U.S. border, and there's no trial. I mean, where is the UN on this one? About 86 people have been killed so far. We've provided absolutely no evidence, no proof of any guilt here. Where is the international outrage on this? And even, you know, from within our own U.S. Congress, the only one, Rand Paul, is standing up for this. I mean, we do have to obey rule of law.
I would approach this somewhat differently. I think it's clear that Trump wants to commit regime change in Venezuela. I think that is clear. And I think if he's going to do that, he needs to actually make the case to the United States, to the voters, and to Congress.
No one cares. No one wants to get into another regime change war. And by the way, that, in case you haven't noticed, is a lot easier said than done. Once you get in there, you have to stay there. We're going to break Venezuela the way we broke Iraq. And by the way, the fight against Venezuela is going to be way harder than Iraq because these guys are going to go into the jungle and they're going to wage a guerrilla war against whatever government we wind up putting in there. How many of our kids are going to have to die to stop the Maduro? And by the way, why are we doing this? Just like with Iraq, it's the oil. The oil reserves in Venezuela is why Trump and Rubio are so hot to get in there. This is something the CIA has tried to overthrow that regime for the last 20 years. And they failed every single time, and they're going to fail again.
Well, just to be clear, I don't think it's a good idea to do this, to wage this war. But I think if you're going to wage a war, you have to make a public case for it.
The public doesn't care. The public does not want another war. And this, I got to say, I think this is a way of distracting us from the Epstein business. I think that's why he's so hot to get into this war. He thinks that by waving the flag and blowing up some boats, makes him look like some hero. It's pathetic. There's no popular will behind it, and it's going to destroy this administration if he tries to do it.
And on that note, we're going to go to our public service announcement. Please stick with us, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the back room. Last time we were here, Zohran Mamdani had not yet been elected, but now New Yorkers are sitting around waiting for an actual communist to take office, a jihadist. He is demonstrating all of his advertised foibles as he gets ready to assume office. The city is, I think, waiting for what's coming, and I don't think anybody's too happy about it.
Well, okay, but let's slow down with the communist jihadist rhetoric. Eric Adams was in Israel this week saying that he worries for Jewish families with Jewish kids on the streets of New York. I mean,
I worry for that too.
All right, but I mean, this is the mayor of the city of New York saying this, and come on. I mean, Zoran. We'll see what happens.
Jews
but I'm not.
Jews are the victims of vast numbers of assaults, more than anybody else in New York, in parts of Brooklyn and Queens, where there are lots of Orthodox Jews, and their neighbors are Muslims, and the Muslims beat out of them.
Okay, I don't think we can lay that at the feet of Zoran. There are a lot of factors going into the rise of anti-Semitism right now. So he's not to blame for that.
His anti-Semitism is very, very clear.
Well, anti-Israel and anti-Semitism or anti-Zionism.
He's got both. He's got all of them.
In any case, quite a few Jews voted for him, that's for sure. And
Jews in name only.
Come on, Lisa, that's not fair.
Well, it's how I see it. I think that if you're a Jew and you vote for an Islamist anti-Semite, you don't get to reap the benefits of being a Jew.
Okay. All right, well, if anybody has any complaints, direct them at Lisa on that. That one there. I'm not responsible for it. But now, one guy who was very instrumental in Zoran's election was Brad Lander. Remember, in the very last days of the campaign, he cross-endorsed. They endorsed each other.
Yeah, before the primary.
You know, in the primary with the ranked choice voting, he went on Stephen Colbert, and he kind of gave permission for a lot of Jews to vote for Zoran. And we finally found out what was the payoff that Brad Lander got as a result of that. And Brad Lander has announced that he's running for the New York 10th Congressional District. This is the district that handles the southern tip of Manhattan, out into Brooklyn, Brooklyn Heights, Cobble Hill, down through Park Slope, Windsor Terrace, Sunset Park. So it's a very Brooklyn-based district. And with Zoran's endorsement of Brad Lander in this district, despite the fact that there is a Democratic Socialist in the race, I think it's Brad Lander's to win.
Maybe I don't know. I don't think Zoran's endorsement is worth all that much. I don't think it's going to turn out to be monumental in terms of who the electorate picks. Even in Brooklyn, which is the seat of Zoran's power, and
Brad Lander's power.
Brad Lander's power. You know, a socialist Democrat is going to win that seat. That is not, there's no Republican who can win that seat. There's no moderate who can win that seat. That's going to be a socialist Democratic seat.
Well, that's it. Brad Lander's going to run to the left of Dan Goldman, the current congressman, who never really has much of a base, much of a support. I mean, what is he? You know, most New Yorkers had never even really heard of him.
He's an heir. He was the heir to a large fortune, so he had the money to run.
And he had the money to run. He had some profile coming out of anti-Trump kind of investigations. So,
and that's all he's done in his time in Congress.
Brad Lander's a known quantity. You know, he's a nice Jewish boy from Brooklyn. He's got the grandmas who love him. He's a nice guy. Genuinely, you know, just kind of interacting with him as a politician. He's a nice guy. I think that, especially running to the left with Zoran, however it helps, endorsements generally don't make that much of a difference, but it doesn't hurt. I think he's going to take that race. And then we have another interesting race up in the 12th, which is the west side of Manhattan and east side of Manhattan, the Jerry Nadler seat, right? And we have a Kennedy. It's Jack Schlossberg, a Jewish Kennedy from the Upper West Side, going for this seat.
Upper East Side.
Oh, he's an Upper East Sider?
Yeah, he's an Upper East Sider.
Oh, okay.
He lives with his mom. Possibly because at the age of 34, he has never had a job, except he wrote a couple of articles for Vogue in 2024 about Trump. So he went to Yale, he went to Harvard Law School. He's never had a job. He is a total loser. All he does is social media.
Yeah, you know, it's going to be interesting to see who else jumps into this race.
There are a bunch of people running, and we don't know their names because he's sucked up all the air. He's gotten all the attention of the media.
Yeah, you know, that Kennedy name, you know, it could probably carry him to a congressional seat.
I want to believe that the people of Manhattan, the wealthy and professional people of the Upper East Side and the Upper West Side are smart enough to vote for somebody else. Not a conservative, not a Republican, just somebody who isn't this idiot Schlossberg kid.
Well, it's definitely one of those races we'll be watching as it goes forward.
So one of the interesting stories that's come out in the last couple of weeks, since the end of October, is the rise of anti-Semitism on the right. For so long, it's been a totally left-wing phenomenon, but now we're seeing the rise literally among the Trump base. We're seeing that Tucker Carlson recently had on his podcast, on his very widely watched podcast, somebody named Nick Fuentes, who is half Mexican, so it's unclear how he can be a white nationalist, but he is a supporter of both Hitler and Stalin. So Tucker platformed Nick Fuentes, who has a lot of support among young, white, male Republicans who are called Groypers. And these Groypers, and nobody knows how many there are, but there are some estimates as high as 30% of young white males working in a place like Washington might be fans of Fuentes. So Fuentes is a total hardcore anti-Semite and a total racist. And he believes that the proper way to have sex with women is rape. He's actually said that. He is clearly a weirdo and a disgusting human being, but he has now got this platform. And there's been a contest over the last couple of weeks between factions in the Republican Party that think it's okay that Tucker gave him this platform, and factions that have come out radically against it because they do not want these pollutants, this racism and anti-Semitism, allowed to fester in the Republican Party. And I, of course, agree with the ones who don't want. Ted Cruz, for instance, has been very vehement about keeping this out of the Republican Party, about keeping this out of conservatism. J.D. Vance, on the other hand, has overlooked it and seems to think it's just fine. So it's a fascinating development, and not one I want to see.
They're a major portion of the Republican base. They're a major portion of MAGA. And it seems to be getting more and more intense. If you look at the conspiracy theories behind the Charlie Kirk assassination, that the one that kind of seems to be making the rounds is that Israel or the Mossad was behind the assassination, that they've just set up this patsy to kind of take the fall.
Well, the Groypers love that kind of association.
Yeah, and of course, there's a long history of anti-Semitism and conspiracy theories about who's really controlling things behind the scenes. But it definitely has this kind of ferocity to it that America hasn't seen in a very long time.
No. I will say two things. The first is that just regarding Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
Today I read a piece by a commentary magazine editor making the argument that Charlie Kirk, it turns out, kept this at bay, kept these Groypers at bay for the foreseeable past. That he himself alone kept these people from coming to the surface and having any power. And now that he's gone, people like Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes are taking over the Turning Point USA base. So that is an interesting point about Charlie Kirk. The other point,
and it's a battle. It's a battle between
it's a big battle
between Turning Points USA. And this kind of emergent the loyalists, they would say, to Charlie Kirk, Candace Owens. And sort of others.
She's another anti-Semite.
Well, again, the terms, without accusing anybody of anything, there's definitely this fracture, and it does pivot on Israel. Which side supports Israel, and the anti-Israel rhetoric that you're hearing from Republicans, like you said before, only the left would say things like this. This was never something that you would hear from the Republicans.
Right. I mean, who are these people? And the answer is they are young white men who have been disrespected their whole lives in high schools and colleges, who have been made to feel bad about being young white men, who have been talked to about racism and colonialism and whatnot. So they're angry.
They're angry.
And they feel disenfranchised. And you can see why they would reach for this kind of ugly straw, just to grasp something to hate more than they are themselves kind of hate it.
Yeah, it's a sad fact, and the fact is we have been very mean, dismissive to boys in particular, and that has, I think, hurt them, and they're now coming into the culture and coming back angry.
And who could blame them?
In a way, I agree with that. I think that any group that you kind of target, that you dismiss, it just eventually it comes back at you. And I would hope that, you know, one of the things that Charlie Kirk was doing was that he was starting, or was bringing the kind of discourse and the idea that you can have discourse and discussions to college campuses, and it doesn't have to be a fight, and it doesn't have to be about calling names. But I think that we've kind of gone back in many ways against what Charlie Kirk was at least trying to do.
There's a fissure between traditional Catholics and evangelicals on this issue. There seem to be a lot of evangelicals are very pro-Zionist. They're pro-Israel. They believe in ultimate salvation in Israel, and they have remained philo-Semitic. They have remained friends of the Jews. Whereas there are a lot of traditional Catholics who have moved away from this and who are angry at the Zionist Christians, and who are angry, of course, at the Zionists.
Well, the Zionist evangelical Christians were always a little kind of strange in their idea of bringing on the apocalypse by supporting Israel. That is a little wacky. I mean, however much you support Israel, we don't want to bring on the apocalypse.
But if it's coming, you want to be prepared.
Well, now, as far as the Catholics are concerned, you know, there are issues regarding how Christians have been treated in Israel, particularly in the West Bank, that do need to be addressed.
Christians are treated extremely well by the Israelis. It is the Arabs who have harmed Christians. Christians have been thrown out of places like Bethlehem by Muslim Arabs. You know what? We can talk about this more next week. But right now, we have to say goodnight. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll be back in a week. Good night.